Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'da, habita fillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our series in Riyadh Saliheen, gaining some benefits and fawaid from Imam Nawawi's excellent book on manners and adab and prohibitions and things which are recommended. And we reached the chapter in Riyadh Saliheen in the Kitab As-Salam, in the book of Salam, the book of greetings. And I chose this chapter because in it is the medicine for extremism and being too easy. Meaning that many people, they make a hukum, a ruling in Islam based upon their desires, what seems more fitting for their culture, more fitting for their way, more fitting for what their idea leads them to think. And others, they make a hukum in addition according to their whims or a lack of knowledge, so it can either go in one of two ways. Either that they're way extreme, as we see many of the extremist groups, they take something of Islam and they go beyond the bounds. Tajawuz al-had, they go beyond the bounds. And then another group that is so easy on everything that everything becomes permissible in Islam according to their desires. So Imam Nawawi, from his fiqh, from his understanding, from his insight, his basira, he mentions in a section here in the Kitab As-Salam, in the chapter, the book of greetings, he mentions a subchapter. And listen to this subchapter. And one of the things I want to forewarn you about is, if you're not reading the Arabic, the original text, you will find quite a difference in the meaning, and we're going to explore that. So Imam Nawawi, rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatin wasiya, he says, Bab salam al-rajul ala zawjatihi wal-mar'atu min muharamihi wa la ajnabiyati wa ajnabiyat la yakhaf al-fitna bihinna wa salamihinna bihadha shart. Imam Nawawi, rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatin wasiya, he says the chapter of giving a man giving salams, giving greeting his wife, and a woman who he is, who he cannot marry. So it could be sister-in-law, it could be, his aunts or what have you. من محارمه وعلى أجنبيتي وأجنبيات. So, and also on the women who it is permissible for him to marry, or that they are also muharram for him to sit with alone and so forth. And plural from amongst them, a gathering of them. And then Imam Nawawi, from his fiqh, this is all in the chapter, in the bab. He says, La yakhaf al-fitna bihinna wa salamihinna bihadha shart. He says, the fact that he is not afraid of any fitna from them, or, of anything that's going to make him do the haram, or make them do the haram. He says, and that is the condition for that, meaning giving them salams. Imam Nawawi here, in this subchapter, is letting us know something very important, and that is fiqh fi deen, understanding of the deen. And that understanding of the deen is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives ahl al-ilmi wa fiqhi wa sunnah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this fiqh fi deen, this understanding in the religion, to the people of knowledge, the people of insight, the people of understanding, a deeper understanding than you and I and just the average Muslim. Because we come to our conclusions based on our whims. Look at Imam Nawawi, the fiqh that is apparent in this chapter. Now, when we look at the English, it says greeting one's wife and other women. Now, that is a concise way to translate all of the topics that Imam Nawawi explored in that chapter. However, it doesn't do it full justice because it still doesn't give you clarity about the hukum, whereas Imam An-Nawawi, from his fiqh and understanding, in his chapter alone, he gave us the fiqh, he gave us the hukum, he gave us the ruling with regards to that, and he gave us a shart, he gave us the condition or the dawabit for that ruling. He gave us the criterion for the ruling, and that is that there's no fitna. So Imam An-Nawawi, he begins with the first hadith. عن سهل بن سعد رضي الله تعالى عنه قال كانت فينا امرأة وفي رواية كانت لنا عجوز تأخذ من أصول السلك فترحه في القدر وتكركر هبات من شعير فإذا سلينا الجمعة وانصرفنا نسلم عليها فتقدمه إلينا رواه Bukhari. This hadith in Sahih Bukhari is azim, because in it Sahl ibn Sa'd radiyallahu ta'ala an reported there was a woman amongst us who would put beetroot in a pot and add to it some ground barley. She used to cook them together. On returning from the Jumu'ah prayer, we would greet her and she would offer it to us, Ruwahu Bukhari. Now, first and foremost, Ahabat Fillah, what we gain from that tarjama, what we gain from that, the chapter title, we gain the fiqh and the understanding and the ruling. We gain the understanding and we gain a Islamic ruling. And we also get the illah, or the reason, or the wisdom behind it. And that is fitna. That the reason you cannot do this is because it can be a source of fitna. And if there is no source of fitna, azalata darar, if the harm is removed, then no problem. La bas, you can give salams. So from that tarjama, we understand so much. Secondly, ahabati fillah, we see the shahid of the hadith, and that is that Sahl ibn Sa'd radiyallahu ta'ala an, he said we would greet her and she would offer it to us. So letting us know that a group of the companions radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een would greet this sister in Islam, and she was serving them, giving them a service after the Jumu'ah out of kindness. And you will find these kind of beautiful traits, especially in the Muslim lands. In many, especially if you're in a smaller community, a village, or you're in even other communities, you'll find people, the people of Islam, the Muslims, who just love serving their brothers and sisters. And they don't look, oh, you're a boy, you're a girl, they're just actually just doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they're on khair. Or they go to the Hajj and they serve people, or what have you, or the Umrah. So you'll find this kind of khair, especially in the Muslim communities, meaning in the Muslim communities in the Muslim countries, probably in Pakistan, probably in Afghanistan, probably in Indonesia. I know it in Saudi, in Yemen I've seen it. All over the place you'll find this when there are large pockets of Muslims and they're generally the majority, or they at least generally control or inhabit a territory. So you'll find this even in Ethiopia, which is not necessarily a Muslim country. So you'll find this kind of servitude. So here, this woman was serving the believing men or the passerbyers after Salatul Jumu'ah, offering them something which would be a very nice snack or treat or something good that they could benefit from. And the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een would give her salams. So that is the point of the hadith, and that's why Imam An-Nawawi put it here to show and illustrate the ruling, the hukum of giving salams. Now, something that also must be observed in the Arabic, and I don't know in the English, I didn't see it. In the Arabic, they also mention another narration. They mention the narration in Sahih Muslim, and they mention that he says, وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ كَانَتْ لَنَا عَجُوز. So in a narration, it mentions that she was an elderly woman. And so that also lets us know the hukum that if a woman is elderly, again, then there is no problem. And again, why? Is it because of her age? Or is it because of the lack of fitna? Because there's no fitna there. She's elderly. You're not necessarily attracted and you're not moved by that. And she is generally past that stage in her life herself, perhaps. Or she is not maftoon anyway by you. So the point is, Imam an-Nawawi, in this chapter, he says, لا يخاف فتنة بهن وسلامهن بهذا الشرط. He said, and giving salams to women, that you are not finding it a fitna, that there is no fitna. There's not going to be any harm to your Islam. It's not going to cause you to want to commit grave sins or that you're going to be disturbed by that. And he says, bishart, this is conditional, that there is no fitna. So meaning you cannot do it if it is a fitna. And we have mentioned examples. For example, maybe a young man and he sees a bunch of single sisters or whatever. He sees a bunch of sisters and he just goes up, starts talking to them. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you sisters doing? Da, 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 da. No, this is unbefitting, because even if it's not a fitna for him, maybe it's a fitna for them. Or this opens the door up for something else. So you don't want to go to either extreme where you just close the door to everything. Or you go to another and make that which is permissible impermissible. Nor the other extreme where you try to abuse the nusus and you try to come with a new fiqh and say, hey, it's all good. But rather, the balanced position is coming from the book and the sunnah. It's coming from the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, as we'll see in the next hadith. قال Imam an-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasiya in the next hadith, which says, وعن هاني, he says, Hani radiyallahu ta'ala anha, the daughter of Abu Talib, reported, I went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of the conquest of Mecca. He was taking a bath and Fatima was screening him with a cloth. I greeted him and she mentioned the rest of the hadith. Ruwahu Muslim. It's a hadith mentioned in Sahih Muslim. So again, this shows us the hukum, the ruling of greeting another Muslim, especially if there is no fitna, you're not afraid of any fitna. And we mentioned the situation of Ajuza, as Imam an-Nawawi mentioned in the subtitle of an elder, and also of kin, near of kin. In the next hadith, Asma bint Yazid radiyallahu ta'ala anha reported the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by us when we were with a party of women, and he greeted us. Ruwahu Abu Dawood, and this is a hadith Hasan. And also in a narration in Tirmidhi, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, he said that marra fi masjid yawmin wa usbatun min an-nisa qu'ud fal-alwa biyadihi bi-taslim. So in another narration that's in Tirmidhi, it is mentioned that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going by the masjid, and there was a group of women that were sitting. They were having, kind of sitting down and having a gathering or what have you, discussing something. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he gave them salams with his hand. He greeted them, by with his hand. sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam. Meaning the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam saw a group of women. He didn't take off running, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but he greeted them, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wasallam. So these group of ahadith, they mention and they illustrate for us again many of the things that many of us know, that we should be lowering our gaze and that we should avoid fitna. They also mention the permissibility of giving salams to women that, of course, that we're related to, al-muharram, those who are forbidden for us to marry. Also, even other women, if you were to see a group of Muslim sisters, but yet you can go, especially for us in the non-Muslim world, we see that we mix with women. It's just the way it is. You try to limit that role, and depending upon your job or whatever in your life, your livelihood, that you may have a greater ability to avoid the opposite sex altogether. You may be a sister that works in the workforce, but yet you work with almost no men, or no men at all, or a brother likewise. But for most of the Muslims, most of humanity, they work across the world, whether it's in the West or in lands of the Muslims, they work with opposite sex. So how do we deal with that? Well, as we see, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the best from amongst us. He's the best of mankind, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he illustrated for us that it is permissible to give salams to the women. However, that does not mean going out of your way to run and chase down people and give them salams. But if you come across, you observe the Islamic adab, lowering your gaze and avoiding fitna. If you think that it's going to be a fitna, then you avoid it. For example, in a place like Saudi Arabia, because of the customs are different amongst a lot of the Arab customs. Not all of them, but many of them, especially in the Khalij. So I can recall, maybe you have a neighbor. So when I would be coming down to the stairs, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to work, I'm doing whatever, and if my neighbor's wife was coming up, we both had to end up in the hall. It wasn't like we were just going to take off running. I may be in a hurry, I have to go to work. What would I do? I might turn the other way and then she would go by, or she would do it. She would see that it was me and she would turn into the corner and allow for me to pass. And under those circumstances, I didn't give salams because it was the custom. Not that I was afraid that anything was going to happen, but because of respect for the custom of the Muslims there, and and to keep any, and of course the fitna of jealousy and everything, closing all those doors. But if it were to be in the West, and I see a whole sea of non-Muslims, and then I see a Muslim sister in the aisle, I might greet her and say Assalamu alaikum and keep it pushing. And what does this do? This lets her know that, hey, there's a brother around if something happens, because those are the kind of brothers that we are. We're not going to just, let the people tear their hijab and harm the sisters. So there can be a comfort in that. But again, that's assessing, as Imam An-Nawawi gave us the dhabit, which is so important. He said, La yakhaf fitna. He said, as long as you're not afraid of fitna, meaning it's opening a door. So I don't say you're a young brother and you see a bunch of sisters, so you go up there and you approach them, Assalamu alaikum sisters, just wanted to introduce myself, and then you walk away. No, this is jumping into the fitna. But my point is that Islam gives us that beautiful balance. And Imam bin Uthaymeen mentions further in his ta'liq, he expounds upon this. And his view is that you should generally avoid, and especially he mentions those categories like the young people and so forth of giving salams. But here we have the actual nusus here letting us know, and again at the end Imam bin Uthaymeen, he mentions very clearly, he says basically the dhabit is is that as long as you're not afraid of fitna, that it is not going to be a source of fitna, like where there's a source of mixing and opening the doors of the shaitan and so forth. So if you are afraid of fitna, then avoid it in totality. Now, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil and protect us from kulli su wa makruh. Bless us with ikhlas, with thabat. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.